What's good, y'all? Commissioner's Corner here. I don't usually get a Saturday off, so I decided to make a little bit of a video here to talk about those first two games that happened, plus one breaking news that broke this morning. I just want to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, what I think it means for the future of this fantasy season. So, enough yapping. Let's get into it. All right, before we get into the games, I want to talk about this breaking news. Quinshon Judkins signed his 4-year rookie deal. But it's not just a normal 4-year deal. He's going to be back week one. What's really going to happen here is he's going to sit out at least 2 weeks because he has a 2-game exemption before he has to be on the active roster. We also don't know if he's going to get a suspension yet for the domestic violence issues. In the past, this has been basically an auto 6-game suspension, so we might not see him till week 7 if things break out that way. But at the very least, we know that we have 2 solid weeks of Jerome Ford. We know Dylan Sampson's going to get involved. It's going to be a solid situation for them, and we know when we can officially move off of them, because by the end of week 2, we should have an idea what's going on with his investigation and if his suspension is looming. Let's get off of the bum-ass Browns and the news of Judkins. And let's talk about that Thursday night game. Eagles versus Cowboys. I had a feeling it was going to be a little bit of a slowish start, and I said the same thing in a short for our Friday night game. But in the first half, it was hot on both sides. It was, 21-20 at the end of the first half before being 3-0 in the second half. Let's start with the Eagles here. Their offense was very boring. It was a lot of underneath routes. Their wide receiver target share was only 35%, which I don't think is sustainable. So don't think too much into the fact that A.J. Brown only got 1 target, 2 minutes left in the game. That's not something that's going to happen on a week-to-week basis. This 35% makes 0 sense because their RB share was 25%, and then their tight end was 40%. Yes, their wide receiver target share is probably going to be lower than what a lot of people think, and it's not going to match a lot of the teams in the NFL, but 35% is ridiculous. Devontae and A.J. Brown both did nothing this game. Now, they focused very heavily on the run game. Barkley only averaged 3.33 carries, but he had 18 rush attempts. Jalen Hurts had 14 rush attempts. Yes, Hurts went 20 for 20 on his pass attempts, but this was a run-first team. I believe I have here that Hurts utilization was 54%. That was very high for quarterbacks because it's a marker of a quarterback who is running the ball by himself. They're creating opportunities for him to scramble. Barkley's utilization percentage was 46%, which seems pretty on line to where I think he's going to be this season. Both Hurts and Barkley had very solid fantasy performances. The rest of the team was ugly. And I think these two will keep performing. I'm not panicking on anyone, and you shouldn't either. They have a new OC. Kellen Moore is gone. That is bigger news than we probably really marked it out to be, because offenses need to take a second to get back into their own ways. So yes, they're starting slow. They started slow against a Cowboys team that we thought they were going to decimate. It didn't happen. Cowboys came out and played a very good second half without Micah, obviously, and their offense was, like the Eagles' offense was sluggish. It will take time. They will be good. Do not panic on them yet, but we know at least 2 of these guys are just going to keep balling out week to week. Now, on to the Cowboys here. I think it's going to be a performance that people are going to overreact to. Javonte Williams had a great week 1, but he had 2 touchdowns. He wasn't very efficient. Jaden Blue was a scratch. Miles Sanders was more efficient with his opportunities. And Javonte only saw a utilization rate of 38%, which is extremely low if we're talking about starting caliber running backs, and it just doesn't bode well for his future. Utilization percentage is basically where you measure the snaps played, and within those snaps, how often was the player given the ball or were they targeted? He was not targeted very often. He was not really a part of this attack, and he was inefficient when they tried to make him a part of this attack, even with Jalen Carter missing out of the middle. Now, I don't have the advanced metrics on the routes run getting into the receiving game a little bit, but CeeDee Lamb having 7 receptions on 13 targets for 110 yards makes sense. He accounted for almost 40% of the team's target share, which is absolutely nutty. He had some drop issues. I know that's been the talk of the town. But it is what it is. Like, we're not talking drops for how good a player did in the actual game. We're talking about fantasy here. The drops aren't going to hurt you. He's getting the targets. He's the number 1 in this offense, and he received almost a 40% target share. What do you really have to say about it? He's a lock-in wide receiver 1. Going to George Pickens, though, he was sort of bad. He really seemed to give up on some routes. He seemed a little bit out of it in the game, but maybe that changes as we go along. His target share was 12.1%, which is absolutely horrendous, and he only had 3 receptions for 30 yards. I think it's going to get better for him. He was on the field for 77% of the snaps in this one. But it was just an ugly start to his career. If you want to try to target him in case someone's panicking, go for it. I think he's going to have a bounce back, especially since they played the Giants in week 2. But, I mean, it was just a bad performance for him in his first game, especially since he commanded a 30% target share last year on the Steelers. And just talking about Dak here for a second, once again, another ugly game. It was just an ugly game all around. 188 yards might be his season low, and honestly, it is my guess that it's going to be his season low. But I still see him as a back-end QB1 despite the horrendous performance. The Eagles' defense is just great. Like, there's not much to say about it. They absolutely smothered them in the second half, and two of the touchdowns for the Cowboys going to Javonte Williams is not something that I expect to happen week to week. I almost would be willing to bet my apartment on it. With the Cowboys and Eagles out of the way, let's talk about a game that was actually a little bit more fun and something that I think there's a little bit more fantasy relevance to going in the future. That's going to be the Chiefs-Chargers game. Chargers won it 27-21. Great game. Justin Herbert was a rock star. The fact that he had over 300 yards passing, 74 completion rate, 3 touchdowns, 32 yards rushing, and probably the dopest QB slide I've seen in a long time. The man was just on one. And he didn't just like hyper-focus targeting like we'll get into the Chiefs here, but he spread the ball around. You saw 7 targets for Quinshon Judkins. You saw 9 targets for Ladd. You saw 10 targets for Keenan. And I don't want to put much stock into Quinshon Judkins getting as much work as he did, because like he does this every season. He starts it hot, or he just hits a couple random games where you start to believe in him. But he did play on 82% of the snaps, which is crazy. Ladd played on 85%. Keenan played on 62%. I expect that that workload for Quinshon Judkins, that 82%, to lower a little bit and Keenan go up. But we're probably talking about a guy who's going to be playing on at least 70% of the snaps. He has value this season. I don't want him. He's way too volatile. He did get 2 red zone targets, but it's just a weird situation, and I'm out on him. I'm very in on Keenan, though. Keenan looked like his vintage self. He had a 29.4% target share in this one, which means he made the most out of 62% of his snaps played. He is probably, if he's not on a roster, which he should be on every roster, I basically grabbed him in the second or third last round in every league just as a what if he turns into that, because there was a lot of reports that the chemistry between him and Herbert was fully back. You should pick him up. You should target him. I think he's going to be a great floor value. I don't know his ceiling, but this offense looks great. Now, getting into the running game a little bit, Omarion was inefficient. I mean, he's a rookie. It was his first game. He played against a pretty good front 7. So it is what it is, but his workload was there. He had 15 rushes, 48 yards. He had 2 catches, and his snap share was 80%. It was a bad 33% utilization rate, but the passing game was just that effective for him that why would they just keep handing the ball to Omarion? It made 0 sense. Plus, he was very good in pass protection in this one, so he was needed on those passing downs as well. So it just bodes well that he's being a good pass blocker. They're giving him the opportunity behind the line when they do run it, and they're going to be in a very dynamic offense where I think he will start to see some touchdown upside week to week. He didn't get in this one, but when your offense is this good, you're going to get to the red zone. That's where the running backs score. So Najee was a non-factor. We knew that going in a little bit. It's not going to be this, he only has 1 rush and 2 targets every game. I think it's more going to be like a 70-30, 60-40 split once he's fully back. But I don't think that means Omarion's going to lose much of his value. Marion's utilization was very low. He played on a lot of downs where they wouldn't have put, some of those downs might have gone to Najee. So I think his utilization rate will go up as that split starts to even out a little bit. So I don't see much affecting what I think is going to be his workload this season. And lastly here, we have the Chiefs. The Chiefs had a really interesting situation happen on the first drive. Xavier Worthy went down after getting absolutely murdered by Kelsey on a crossing route. We don't know what's going to happen with his shoulder injury. They're doing an MRI on it. I will definitely be reporting on it once we get that news, and we need to be paying attention to that news because what happened after that injury is very interesting. With Xavier out, I thought Kelsey might have gotten a little bit more work. He only got like 4 targets. That's nothing. That's his average game. What really happened was Hollywood Brown got funneled like crazy. He caught 10 of 16 targets for 99 yards, and he had a 93% snap share. I think that is going to be very sticky, especially if Xavier Worthy has to miss some time. if Xavier Worthy misses some time and we have Rashi out for 6 weeks, this might be my number one guy on the waiver wire. But we really just need to see what happens with this news first. Now, this also really excites me for Rashi when he comes back, because he's not going to come back hurt. He's coming back healthy. If Mahomes wants to funnel guys, he did that to Rashi before the injury last year. There's a chance that we could see that happen again, where they start to funnel him. Yes, he's going to get to have some workload taken away from these other guys, but he's going to have a very strong fantasy ceiling and very strong fantasy floor, especially with the way Mahomes was playing in this one if it continues. So I am trying to get Rashi on my teams. Probably not this week, probably not next week, but I do want to try to target him because I have very high hopes knowing that this is how Mahomes wants to play, especially since they want to sling the ball so much more this year, which they said all offseason. We saw it in game one because they had 39 passing attempts. Now, getting away from the passing game a little bit, let's talk about the rushing game. The Chiefs only ran 10 times. When you pass it 39 times, you're not running the ball. Between those rushing attempts, we had 5 rushes for Hunt, 5 rushes for Pacheco. Pacheco played on 51% of the downs and had a utilization rate of 26% because, once again, it was a lot of stat protection, or he's going on a basically just an out route to the sideline and not getting targeted because this was the Hollywood Brown show. Hunt saw 38% of the snaps, utilization of 35%. I think this is going to be a true committee all season. I think there's going to be value in this committee, but I don't necessarily like the floor. You're going to get some bad weeks like this one, where if they don't get in the end zone, sorry, that's it. You really just want to pay attention and maybe not hurt to try to grab a guy, even Brashard Smith, who did see a little bit of work in this one. He didn't get any he didn't get any targets, he didn't get any rushes, but he did see some snaps. If one of these guys goes down, yeah, it's worth to target the other one. Otherwise, I'm sort of out on him. I think there's going to be value. There's going to be some bad weeks. There's going to be some good weeks because it is a good offense. But this committee is just basically a 50-50 split once we start breaking down Pacheco having 50 and Hunt and Brashard making up the other 50. And I don't see that changing at all during the season. So with those games out of the way, I want to wrap up basically my thoughts on the fantasy value of these games. You might have people panicking about A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. I think it is a good time to try to inquire about it, because you never know what's going to happen. They might sell them for the pennies on the dollar, because this is not going to happen again. Once I said before, there was only a 35% target share for wide receivers for the Eagles. That is not normal. That is not stable. No team's going to run that again. And this team's only going to get better as the weeks go on. Jalen Hurts went 20 for 20. We're talking about throws where he actually attempted to throw the ball and then just throw it out of bounds to avoid the sack. He was perfect. He just didn't really have many routes. Everything he looked at was sort of covered for A.J. Brown, and they just took what they could get. Going on to the Cowboys, not much to think about. I think Pickens can have some value, but I'm not going out and trying to get him. I want to sort of wait and see. And if he's on your team and you have a valuable other receiver that you could start in the flex ahead of him, might be worth it just to see, but I think it's going to be a bounce back as well. Now, going over to Chargers, Amarian's going to get the workload. It's pretty obvious. But I don't think it's going to be up to the third round value that he was getting. But he's still going to be solid. The bigger thing to really note is Quinshon Judkins might be a decent add if you're in a deep league. And Keenan Allen looks legit. So I have Keenan Allen on my teams. If I didn't have him, I'd be asking about him, because I think he's going to be the wide receiver 2 on this team that's going to pass a lot. And lastly, we got the Chiefs here. We just need to pay attention to the injury news. I think that's going to make or break what we're going to be doing here. If the injury's not much, I'm probably not going to really target anyone on this team. But if that injury is going to keep him out a couple weeks, I'd be dropping some serious fab on Hollywood Brown. So that's really all I got to talk about. If anyone watches, I hope you enjoyed me just yapping, talking about these games a little bit, talking about the Quinshon Judkins news. But I hope you enjoyed. Please please subscribe, please comment. I really appreciate anyone who potentially watches these. I know my last video has 4 views, but I don't care. These are fun to make. But that's going to be all. Let's wrap it up. Thank you for watching. Hope to catch you next time. Peace.